And welcome to the Barry Foster Show on YouTube, originating from the Ridge Floor Studios in the City of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. I'd like to remind you that if you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions for the program, you can just put them in the comments below. We'll get back to you, show the YouTube that we're interacting with our viewers. You can always send it to the Barry Foster Show at gmail.com. We try to put up something every day, every weekday, Monday through Friday, and we're starting to get maybe where we can get some bonus episodes on the weekends as well. We try to put a post at least once every weekend. And if you subscribe to our YouTube page, that'll help a lot. Like and subscribe, and joining our pages at the Barry Foster Show on Facebook and Instagram would be very helpful. At this time, we're up to 145 subscribers on our way to 1,000. But I do want to thank. We only have 145 subscribers, but we have thousands of views. Mm-hmm. People come on all the time and view and listen to our programs, and it was interesting to me. Most of them listen on their phones, but some of them, about 20% apparently, watch it on TV. And you're one of the guys that watches on TV.
Watch it on TV. Watch it on the big screen. Right.
So who comes on after us? Victor Davis Hanson? What do you call up after us?
No, you can watch Victor Davis Hanson like us anytime. So whether you watch him before, after, whatever. And that's the way it is with all these podcasts. The beauty of it is, unlike being hooked on, let's say, big media situation where they come on at 7, mm-hmm. and you have to watch them at 7 or you don't see them unless you record it, all right? You can watch YouTube podcast all day, every day, anytime. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, and we really appreciate all the people that are tuned in, especially the folks that tell us what they think and what they're talking about, what they'd like to hear us talk about. We try to stay on top of the happening trends. Yesterday we were talking a little bit about this, but Donald Trump recently went with Jerome Powell to view the new building that he said wasn't. It was $2.7 billion, and Trump reaches in his coat like a pastor reaching for his sermon. He goes, I think it's over $3 billion now. And he goes, really? He says, yeah, it just came out, and he hands it to him.
Yes, he does. Yep.
And then a reporter yells from off mic and says, if you had a developer that went up so much over budget, what would you do? And Trump goes, what would I do? What did he say?
I'd fire him.
and the look on Jerome, there's a lot of talk that Mr. Powell may not be around much longer. He may tender his resignation.
Trump has the ability. He hired him. Remember, Jerome Powell was hired by Donald Trump. All right, but he has, and his term will be up, I think, later this year. It's a 10-year term, and later this year he'll be leaving anyhow. Mm-hmm. Trump could fire him, but I really think that Trump would rather not do that. I think he would rather have. Yes, he's putting a squeeze on him, and that's right. That's okay, but I think. Maybe after the session there last Friday or whatever, when they were reviewing the building and so on, I think Powell is going to rescind and say, okay, come September, October, I'm going to reduce the interest rates by it. Because like Trump keeps saying, the interest that we pay on the debt is in the billions of dollars.
Yes.
Billions. It is now the highest expense that the government has is the interest on the debt. And so with the higher interest rates, we have to pay more. So if Jerome Powell would lower the interest rates, we would have to pay on a national debt a lot less. Plus, it would open up, I think, the housing market, which is really a big problem across the country. There's not enough housing. And how many people can afford to buy a $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 house?
No.
You can't
not
do
me.
It. I saw a thing yesterday. They were talking about in Boston, the homeless problem in Boston. I didn't know this, but they showed it. Some of the sections, it was like San Francisco. It's horrible, all right? But they said an average one-room bedroom in New York City, a one-room bedroom was minimum $3,700 a month.
Wow.
Who in the world, on any average person working a regular job, can afford $3,700?
It depends on what they're getting paid. We had a guy here when I first moved down here to Highlands County. There was a guy who retired as a lieutenant or a captain of the New York City Police Department, and under his retirement benefits, he really got an amazing amount of money. Oh, it was almost as much as he was working. He came down here to Florida and was living like a king. So it depends on what you're getting paid for that. But we're talking a little bit about Jerome Powell and some of this stuff that Trump is doing to make him more agreeable. Let's use that word. Russell Vought, who's the director of the White House Office of Budget and Management, the OMB, came out and was questioning Powell's honesty, and he directly referenced the Federal Reserve building. And here's a guy, Vought, who worked with Doge on waste, fraud, and abuse. Okay, He's in there, and he's been talking about what's being done with the Fed. But I think Donald Trump is on very, very tenuous ground, because it was under JFK who had begun to talk about disbanding the Federal Reserve, because many people know, if you don't know, maybe we'll do a program on this, there's nothing federal and there's nothing in reserve about the Federal Reserve. It is many people think it's part of the government. It's not. It's a private company.
Private bank.
Yep. It's a private company, and they do pretty much what they want, and there's a lot of political pressure hither and yon on them, but they are not. And as the story goes, John F. Kennedy was talking about doing away with the Federal Reserve and printing new money, which was not controlled by the Fed, all right? And then, tragically, he was shot and killed in Dallas. So we had just had a guy, Mike Sabga, who came in and was talking to us, and I've got a call in. I'm going to get another call in to this American Precious Metals Exchange. It's APMEX. It has nothing to do with Mexico. It's APMEX. It's America Precious Metal Exchange, who are printing dollars for each of the states. And we have what they call Florida Goldbacks. And in each of these dollar bills is, and they're not $1 bills, they're dollar bills, because they fluctuate, because there is 1/1000th of a troy ounce of gold in each of the bills.
It's a thin strip that's melted into, well, I call it melted,
Yeah.
but it's part of the dollar.
It's embossed in there.
Yep.
And so I've got to call into them to talk about this, because Florida and North Dakota, I mean, a lot of the states, I think Alabama, but we were looking at the, and I asked Mike, I said, do you have someone I can talk to? And he says, no, I've been buying from them for years. And so I'm going to try to find, A, someone who will come on and talk about it, and B, I would like to develop a fiduciary relationship with this group, what they call affiliate marketing with this group, because it looks like they're going back to precious metals. A lot of us have bought silver and gold and other precious metals, brass, things, and so this Goldbacks as a alternative currency, which is precious metals, is going to be very interesting. And with all this going on around the Federal Reserve, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
The other thing, and I've bought about 5 or 6 of these now, is copper. You can buy copper dollar coin.
Oh, really?
In copper, yes, and so on. So they're making these coins, if you will, out of almost any material and whatnot. But it's it's amazing that. And by the way, these bucks, if you will, Florida bucks, those are legal tender in the state of Florida. They passed a law. You can go to a merchant, and the merchant has to recognize that as a legal tender bill.
Yeah, this Florida Goldbacks has a deal, and I'm going to make this deal. If you want to pay us to be on the air or to sponsor, and you want to pay with the Florida Goldbacks, we'll take it.
There you go.
We'll take it as legal tender. We will accept that.
Yep.
And we've had some paid guests on, and so if you want to either pay to sponsor, and we have some sponsors who are not paying to, Ridge Florist provides us with our studios here.
Yes, sir.
So,
thank you.
And we cannot thank Nell enough for that. But there's others. Strangely Warmed Coffee, we get nothing from them. We just like their coffee. Anderson Arms, which is ammunitionplanet.com. We're going to have Garrett on to talk about his journey into being a bullet maker, and talking about that. And there's another sponsor. I want to thank Sebring Signs, who did a great job at putting the Barry Foster Show stickers on my cars, and doing our sign in front. And I'm going to have Tina do some more, which are going to be QR codes, because you can put the Barry Foster Show on your phone very easily, whether you have an Android or a iPhone. You go to the BarryFosterShow.net. All right, and at the bottom, if you have an Android, there's those 3 little hash marks, and you hit that, and it'll say "Add to Home Page." Or if you have an iPhone, there's a square with a little arrow that points up. You tap that, and it says "Add to Home Page," and the logo will pop right up there. And then you can always get on 2 pushes of a button, and there you are. You know, so and I'll probably put some instructions up there. But it's something we want to make sure that the Goldbacks, I'd like to see be successful.
Yes, and I looked into that. I went online and looked at that operation.
Yes.
The one question I have with it, and I haven't gotten an answer yet, and that is when you go to enter your purchase with them to buy some of these, and they have a package now that I think you could get 5 of these Goldback dollars for, with the tax and all, I think it was like $39 or whatever it was, is what I saw. But the other thing that I questioned before I followed through with that, there was some kind of an agreement that in order to, I thought it was like protecting your Goldbacks was an ongoing cost of like $20-some a month. And I said,
well, wait, don't they send them to you?
Yeah, they send them to you, but there was something involved with that
well,
I looked and I said, not quite yet ready. I want to make sure I get an
let's
answer
find
to
out.
what this is.
I'll tell you what, when we get them on the horn.
And I went through that Amex too.
Well, when we get them on the horn, you can be in here and ask them those questions.
Yeah, well,
because I think that something you as a consumer you kind of need to know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, because today in this day and age, I mean, there are so many people out there that
trying to get your money
have these side deals going on, that end up costing, and so I just want to make sure I get a straight answer on that.
Amen.
And
So
one other thing I wanted to mention here is I belong to Judicial Watch. I donate to them on a monthly basis, just about or thereabouts, to help support their cause, because I think they do an awful lot of work filing charges against whatever situation, organization, group, committee, whatever. One of the things in the last edition that they just sent out was they have cleaned up in recent years 5 million illegal voters off of the rolls across the country.
that's astonishing.
5 million. Excuse me, just in Kentucky alone, they removed in 1929 735,000 voters that are no longer eligible. They were taken off the rolls. New York City, a 2022 settlement with the city alone, 918,000 ineligible names from the rolls. Then again in March of 23 and February of 25, they removed another 441,000 from New York City voter rolls. So that right there is like 1,013,000. That is like huge numbers. And again, assuming, and I'm sure that some of these people were passed away, some other issues that are, caused them to be ineligible at this point. They didn't vote for so many years or whatever. But the fact that they've cleaned these rolls up takes these people, possibility of them voting, hopefully, if the state does what they said, off the rolls. And that can only help with creating more fair elections.
After the 2020 election, we heard hearings that were on Right Side Broadcasting about people. One guy came and he waited like 6 hours to give his testimony. He says, my dad voted. He says how he voted, I don't know. He didn't know what he had for lunch, but he ended up voting, and who filled that out for him, I don't know. So if your dead and there's been jokes for years about dead people voting. And in point of fact, our friend Steve Larsen, no relation, up in Polk County, had gone through during the 2020 election and found widespread voter registration irregularities. People registered to a boat dock. 40 and 50 people registered out of a single house. People who, when they were asked if they voted, they said no, they didn't. They said, well, yeah, you did, and here's your ballot. They were astonished. So I don't know that anything has been done in Highlands County, right here in Highlands County. But I can tell you that in Polk County, they found those kinds of things, and I have no reasonable expectation if they found it there, it's not here, and not in our other neighboring counties, Okeechobee and Hardy and Glades and Hendry. I'm not at all sure that those things didn't also happen there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I think there's and I know that historically, way before I ever got here, Highlands County was primarily, although there's a fair number of Democrats registered, but a Republican district, if you will.
Yes.
And so on. So it has almost made it, impossible, if you will, for somebody from another party to win in Highlands County over the course of time. Now, that doesn't mean it's not going to change. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen in the future. But I think the thing is, you're right. We need, like every state, I don't care how good or bad you are, need to have these kind of investigations and look at the voter rolls to make sure that they're kosher.
In Highlands County, the latest numbers that we've seen, more than 50,000 of the registered voters are Republican, fewer than 20,000 are Democrat. There are people who have changed their voter registration to run because they realize that you have to have an R after your name. Whether you're actual an R or not is another question altogether.
Well, that we've seen that in activity, if you will, looking at whether you're talking the county commission or any other elected official, if you will, in the county, that situation go on. I mean, there's, they get elected as a so-called Republican, you're right, but then when it comes time to legislate and do things and pass things or reject things, a lot of times they go in the opposite direction.
Yeah, it's something, and we talked about this yesterday, the upcoming midterms. I think that our congressperson here in Highlands County, Scott Franklin, is not going to have any problems. What he will do as an elected official is another discussion for another day. But I think that there are people here in Highlands County who may be called to make calls and campaign in other parts of the state. Mm-hmm. And even most of us came from the great industrialized north. You came, let's pick a state. You came from Pennsylvania.
That's right.
I came from Ohio. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of us out here who still have friends up there who need to be calling and helping to make sure that America First candidates win. In fact, one of the gentlemen that we've had speak to us in the past, a guy by the name of Michael Thompson, is going to be running for Florida District 77 as an America First candidate against another Republican, because the idea is to get not only Republicans but America First Republicans in, and to make sure that the elections are actual fair and open. Let's use those terms, fair and open. And it's going to be up to us to make sure. And we had Karen Healy in talking about the idea of being a poll worker, being a poll watcher. And this is, I don't think it's too early to start talking about this, because this is going to be an extremely important election to keep, as they would say, the Trump train rolling, to keep things moving in that general direction.
Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit earlier about, the state of Florida and the fact that current Governor Desantis, his term is up at the end of next year. Who might be the replacement, and will they be someone that is as good, we believe, as the current president or the current governor of Florida, mm-hmm. and whatnot. So I talked a little bit and mentioned that Brian Donalds right now appears to be the only Republican that has spoken up, and so he appears to be at this point the number one candidate. On the Republican side. On the Democrat side, there would be two people that I would be concerned about. Number one, John Morgan. I think John Morgan has aspirations of being in higher political office,
yes,
where he can do whatever. And then also the mayor of Tampa, all right, who was also the sheriff of that county for a number of years. And I think she has aspirations of being someone in a higher position, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see her run also.
Yeah, it's going to be and there's a special election for Senate coming up in 2026. Right. Of course, Donald Trump has already endorsed Ashley Moody.
Yes.
For that race.
Right.
And he's, to be honest with you, he's endorsed Byron Donalds, who the idea of Casey DeSantis running has kind of evaporated now.
I haven't heard anything more. There was a little bit way back
Yeah.
when, but it's kind of just disappeared.
I think that that's going to be the way it is, but it's above and beyond endorsements. It's going to take a lot of work across the country to make sure that the people who are elected have the same vision, returning the country to its roots as a constitutional republic that Donald Trump has, and looking down the line to help make sure that there's a deep enough bench. We talked last week about Tulsi Gabbard's life being endangered because of some of the things that she was doing and some of the very, very important and powerful people that she's gone after. And I opined that the bench is so deep that if they get rid of her, you're going to have somebody just as good or better than her to step into that place.
I think she's done a really good job.
Yes.
And both of the, I'll call them cross the aisle people that Trump put in, as her and RFK Jr., I think both of them have done so far a really, really good job. And the thing that I really like about them, they're not afraid to speak up. I mean, when they see something that's wrong or bad, they definitely bring it to light, and they don't care. RFK has really let a lot of people go from that Health and Human Services area, over the time. So I think he's really making some dramatic changes, and it'll be interesting to see. I know he's already talked to the food industry in some cases, which is okay. I think the one big thing, I haven't heard a whole lot from him yet, and I hope he gets to it, and that is on the drug manufacturing. Mm-hmm. I think, there's no doubt in my mind that, somehow we need to get our hands around this because, the drug companies are such a huge, huge money-making situation.
We've heard President Trump speak out about this, about how the drug companies should treat us with most favored nation status, where the people in this country get the best prices on drugs. And I realize that they put in so much money in terms of research and development, and at this point, we have been the one to subsidize that. Yep. They need to spread that out so that we don't pay any more than anybody else, and maybe even get better deals.
Well, it's like the tariffs, all right? All I want is equal treatment.
Right.
I mean, what you do to me, I want to do to you, and vice versa.
And the thing we've seen with RFK is that many of these companies have talked about phasing these things out over the next couple of years. Mm-hmm. I don't know when the latest thing is Coca-Cola is going to be doing away with corn syrup, mm-hmm. putting in cane sugar. It's been pointed out on many occasions that is Mexican Coca-Cola. Mm-hmm. If you get Coca-Cola made in Mexico, it supposedly, I don't drink Coke, but it tastes a lot different, okay? Mm-hmm. And so I don't know whether that's going to take 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years to have that happen.
Right.
I can tell you that phasing out some of these colors, I thought red dye number 3 was gone a long time ago. There's a chip company that makes, and they had an American, an Independence Day version, which had blue chips, regular corn chips, and some that they had dyed red. And so I looked up, and it was red dye number 40. Now these chips claimed to be organic, mm-hmm. and so I wrote them a little note, little email, and I said, it's great. My wife is an organic person, and so I also am an organic person. So it was nice to see this, but I said I was surprised that you used red dye number 40, which is petroleum-based. Mm-hmm. And I got an answer back saying, we're always looking for alternatives. And I said, well, you know what? A lot of us would settle for a more muted red if you used beet juice, instead of something that's petroleum-based. That would be, there's, because I know that I saw a comparison of Fruit Loops, the Fruit Loops that you get in Canada and the Fruit Loops you get in the United States. And they shook them out into a bowl, and the American was much brighter colors. The mm-hmm. colors were much more enticing and much brighter, but they weren't nearly, they had stuff in it that I wouldn't necessarily want to put in my body. Mm-hmm. Just because they're prettier doesn't mean that, you've heard of pretty poison, mm-hmm. It doesn't mean they're better. So I'm glad to see RFK continuing to do what he's doing, and I imagine that his negotiations are every bit as spirited as the president's, although all due respect, RFK, your negotiating skills may not be as good as Donald Trump's.
Well, they may not be, but he appears to be getting the job done, which is the name of the game. And he is disrupting the norm,
yes.
Okay, from what it had been for historical periods of time. And the same with Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, and the beauty of this, in releasing all these documents that the Attorney General has done, Pam Bondi, I think has really opened the eyes of a lot of people that either not engaged or sat back and said, well, there's no way that's happening, no way that person's involved. Well, now here comes the document. That doesn't mean that people are going to arbitrarily buy that, because people that are of a certain persuasion are not going to be swayed by something that maybe somebody put out, even though it may be factual, true, all of that. So there's a lot of naysayers out there that you're still going to have to convince on this thing. But I think if you show results as time goes on, and you show results, which is what I think is happening, then I believe more people are going to say, aha, now I see how this all comes together. Now I see what they really did.
Well, I know that one of our dear friends, Les Lobb, really liked Judicial Watch because they don't care which party you're with. They don't care who you are. If you've done wrong, they're very quick to point that out and move forward. And one thing that I've just seen, and I have not read the article yet, it has not come to fruition, but Dan Bongino, as Deputy Director of the FBI, says he has now been looking at information that has shaken him to the core. Now, any of us who followed Dan Bongino knows that he doesn't expect much. When he goes in there, he expects it to be bad. But if it's so bad that even he is shaken, it must be the level of weaponization. And Devin Nunes, who is former California congressman, who was who was the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, says he believes that law enforcement officers, intelligence officers committed crimes, and he's getting on the federal government saying a lot of these guys still have security clearances. They need to be pulled now.
Yeah, it's going to be like we talked, going back to yesterday's program, but like we talked about the Russian collusion situation. I think there are so many people that could and should be arrested or charged and so on. Will that happen? I don't know. I don't know who knows, except maybe the Attorney General, the FBI, and so on. But I surely hope, because there people in the country, they've heard these bad situations for years and years and decades. This goes bad, this is bad, that person's bad, and nothing ever happens.
That's right.
I want to see people in orange jumpsuits, in handcuffs, and throw some leg irons on them just for, extra color, and send them off to the jail somewhere, because they have committed the things that Brennan and Clapper and Comey and them did to that Russian collusion. That is one of the major stories of the overthrow of the U.S. government.
Yes.
And trying to eliminate a valid elected president is what they did to Trump in his first term. And people say, well, why didn't Trump do all this stuff that he's doing now in his first term? Number one, I don't think he had people around him that were so open and honest that were feeding him information. So that was number one. He didn't have the good people that I think he has today. And number two, I think it took more education on his part to really understand how bad is bad.
Yes.
In the federal government. And I think he found out in the 4 years that Biden was in, oh my God, it is really bad. And I think all of that has now started to come back, and he's turning it over. And I think that's the big thing.
And the deep state is out there trying to protect their own.
Oh, absolutely.
And they have plenty of resources to still do that. And there's still plenty of money floating around. And so it's going to be really difficult to unpack all of this stuff. And as we talked about earlier, time's wasted, and they're trying to outweight the midterms. The midterms come next year. The good news about that is beginning now. I think you will find the elected officials that are up for re-election or up for election themselves will be a lot more amenable and a lot more helpful to you with whatever problem you have. And if there's meaningful opposition against them, they really want to make sure that there's no no dissatisfied voters out there. They want everyone to think, oh, I'm a great representative. I'm helping out. I'm helping the people. So this is a chance to get some of these things done. And I do want to take a moment to refer back to Monday's program. And if you have not listened to Monday's program, I would really like you to take a moment to listen to John Hallman and the death of home rule, because there's a Senate Bill 180, which is really designed to help people after a hurricane or after a natural disaster, suspend permitting, make it easier to get repairs on their homes, to make it easier to do things until life returns to normal. But there's either some unintended consequences or things that were put in there intentionally to make it very difficult for county commissions to impose restrictions which are more stringent than state restrictions, and really stops them from being able to stop developers from putting in large developments pretty much wherever they want. And it sounds onerous, and it's just begun. There's a class action suit involving 10 cities and counties. I had John Hallman talking about this. Volusia County, Orange County, Manatee is involved with this. Cities of Deltona, Ormond Beach, Edgewater, New Smyrna are involved in this. And it's anything that the developers say is restrictive and burdensome. And that's some pretty elastic language.
That's very elastic, yes.
So and I'm not sure that if you are, whatever county you're in, you need to listen to this and ask your Senate, ask your commissioner, and ask your Florida representative if they would be up for a special session to take the onerous parts of this out, because where Donald Trump has, and I say this with all love, has been doing, I don't know whether he knows that what he's doing is 10th Amendment stuff, but it is. Mm-hmm. It's returning the power to the states. In the state of Florida, we've seen the opposite, where they've been taking power from the counties and centralizing it in the state of Florida, where they need to be saying, well, the problems of Duval County are not the problems of Highlands County.
Right.
The problems of Hillsborough County are not the problems of Volusia County. What happens in Miami-Dade is totally different from what happens in Henry County. And everybody has, on the coast, they have flooding issues. Mm-hmm. Here, well, not so much. And they want to pass things that are very in line with their comprehensive land use management plans. Now developers can say, well, no, throw that out. Well, I think that's restrictive and burdensome, and we're going to take you to court over this.
Well, and let's go back to the meeting that we sat in on last week, okay, about a local development, where the approval in the beginning was like for 28 homes. But then the contractor came by and said, no, I really want to put 40 in there. So if you had this situation where they could bypass county decisions, if you will, or county ruling, and said, okay, yeah, you've got this plot of land, you plan for 30, but you want to put 50 in there? All right, we'll approve that because, we've got to get these houses built.
And apparently there's a movement, I'm going to have to do some research on this, maybe some other people want to do some research on this, where they use large, high-density developments to destabilize single-family residential neighborhoods, what they call R1, residential 1. R1 is single-family homes on a fairly good plot of land. Then they go to affordable housing, where you have one house on maybe a quarter of an acre or less, and we've seen the housing developments where you literally probably can only barely run a lawnmower between the two houses.
Well, I think, isn't local restrictions on it, like 10 feet between buildings?
Yes.
I believe that's the ruling currently. But do they squeeze that 10 feet? Do they get some kind of amendment that allows them to put it into 8 feet? Or I have no idea. I don't know.
We've seen a development recently approved that allowed 3.7 units per acre, okay? Which is roughly roughly a third of an acre, which is, by the way, not a lot. And if you want families with kids and you want to put, you want to put swing sets in the background and have a place for your kids to run. Where we grew up, I grew up on an acre lot that was shaped like a piece of pie. I know this because it was my job to mow it. Okay, it's just, and so, but my friends and I, we played baseball out there. We had a great time, had a great time playing ball out there. Had plenty of room. Never hit the house.
Yep.
Never hit the house.
Well, on a piece of ground, I've had over the course of years, I had a lot of houses in a lot of parts of the country. Most of them were like 1 acre, 2 acres, 2.5 acres, whatever. When I came here, the house that I got now is 80 by 105.
Wow.
So it's pie-shaped. It's
Yeah.
80 by 105. It is the smallest piece of ground I've ever, and I don't own it, okay, but it's the smallest piece of ground I've ever had.
Do you have to mow it?
No, I don't.
Okay, good. Well, that's good.
When my wife and I both had riding lawnmowers in the last place we had, 2.5 acres. And every weekend, all we did was mow and trim, mow and trim, mow and trim. And I said, when I retire, there will be no this mowing and trimming. So I said, 80 by 105, I'm not mowing it. Somebody else can mow it.
That's right, by gum. I just want to tell you, and we talked a little bit about this, but in the ensuing weeks, we're going to have representatives from the Goldbacks operation. Bob White, who's the head of the Republican Liberty Caucus. Alex Newman, we're going to invite him. C.S. Bennett, one of our good friends. Tom Trento is going to be on very soon to talk about something that is really fallen off the radar screen, but it's the ongoing peace in the Middle East. Mm-hmm. And when the bombing of Iran was going to set everything aflame over there, so far, Donald Trump's made it whole. Donna Doubleday talking about how to get jobs. Raj Doraisamy, who just would defend Florida, has just had a wonderful convention. We're going to be talking to him about that. Michael Thompson, and again, we're going to try to get somebody from Alligator Alcatraz on. So we have a lot of folks going to be on, and hopefully, John, we're going to have somebody phone us in while we're here, and we'll do a phone interview.
Good deal.
Like we did in the old days.
That'll be all right. That'll be fine. And so on. So, yes.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And you've been listening to the latest edition of the Barry Foster Show here at the Ridge Florida Studios located in the City of Charm, downtown Avon Park. If you have thoughts, ideas, or suggestions for our program, just drop us a line at thebarryfostershow@gmail.com or put your comments in the section below here. We'll get back to you right away. Subscribe to our YouTube page. That'll help a lot. Join our pages at The Barry Foster Show on Facebook and Instagram as well. As we continue to look for truth, justice in the American way, this is John Larsen and Barry Foster, and we'll see you next time.